contaminated water, this MTBE filled water. I was like absolutely horrified. There's a court order that's still in effect. If you're in Venergy, you were aware of this, as was the Department of Health. And as I have been reading, I saw that there was a letter of intent to begin, submitted by Invenergy along with the PUD. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit background. The PUD, last time, 16 years ago, was able to, successfully pit state agencies against one another, pit families against one another, districts, the water districts against one another. And while they just sat there, they actually got a $5 million settlement 3 years ago. And part of that settlement was intended to clean up the water. To my knowledge, they have never spent a penny on trying to clean up the water. Secondly, they also, my understanding is that DEM, whatever remediation had been done, was done by DEM, and the PUD, again, did not contribute anything to that, that effort. So I read in here that Invenergy has this letter of intent, and in it, it refers to, let me see, it refers to a, quote, consent order dated December 28th, 2001. That was, that they relied on to support their decision and their determination that they were going to reactivate the wells. I spoke with June Swallow today because there was also, through the ACRA request, we were able to obtain some documents that we believe were also submitted by Invenergy and PUD to the Department of Health, which I'm going to read this. Part of this one document states approvals if required to activate well 3A. And the document here looks like it's a portion of a pamphlet of some sort, and it says, this is really important, as a result of contamination of wells number 3A and 3, number 3, and under a consent order signed, speaking of the same consent order that they were talking about in their letter of intent, in January 15th, 2002, PUD is prohibited from using water from wells number 3A and number 3, except, quote, for remediation of the contamination as directed by the Director of Health, the Department of Environmental Management, Water Resources, or other appropriate state officials. But in no event shall the wells be used to, and Invenergy and or PUD inserted a word that is not, nor was it ever intended to be there, drinking water supply. This language that I just read to you and quoted had nothing to do with any consent order that was issued by the Department of Health. There are two orders. One of the orders is a consent order that was actually signed on February 7th of 2002. And that consent order was in response, it was a DOH consent order that was in response to a directive from Department of Health on December 28th to appear before them for the revocation of their ability to utilize well 3 and 3A for their water. They took the language from another order, which is a Superior Court order. That Superior Court order intended, because I was there, and I have the language, and I'm happy to provide you with a copy, but I'm pretty sure that the Rhode Island Department of Health has one already. That's right. And in that order, I was there for the decision. And the judge was very specific that he was very concerned about the flow of water and the contamination and contaminating Harrisville's water supply or any other waterways. Now, Invenergy and the PUD has represented that the water doesn't have to be, or it's not going to be. As a matter of fact, they've highlighted this fact on their part, that the water's not going to be potable. It's not going to be clean, so don't worry about it. We're not flowing it to have anybody drink it. We're just flowing, I think that the terminology is industrial grade. Well, the industrial grade, if the acceptable level is 20 parts per billion less than or less than 5, there's been instances across the test wells that have shown 55,000 parts per billion. And the order that was issued by the Superior Court is still in effect. That didn't go away. But in Invenergy's application, they submitted that their flow of water was in